Assalamualaikum. Hope you guys are in good health. We have already discussed about the sound transmission and the endocochlear potential. Now we move to the next topic, which is the deafness. We broadly classify deafness into two types. One is the conductive deafness, and other is the perceptive and the sensorineural deafness. First, we studied about the conductive deafness. Conductive deafness is basically a deafness which arises due to a problem in either in middle ear or tympanic membrane or the external ear. So, what can be the problem? It can lead to the earwax in the ear canal, or maybe infection, or especially of the middle ear, which is known as the otitis media, or in some small children or kids there can be a foreign body in the external auditory canal, or the growth of a tumor, or the tympanic membrane can be perforated in case of infection. And also if some pointed a pen needle or pencil, it is basically entered into the external auditory meatus, and it can it damage the tympanic membrane. And also there may be some genetic causes which can affect any of these structures. So what happens, there are two tests which are done with the tuning fork. One is known as the Weber test, and other is the Raynaud's test. You will discuss or study the detail of these tests in your practical manual. Here I only give you a brief account of these tests. In a Weber test, we strike a tuning fork and then we place it on the vortex and then ask the patient to localize the sound. In case of conductive deafness, the sound is localized to the affected ear. So in this case, the affected ear, we can understand that that ear is now having conductive deafness. While in case of a Raynaud's test, we strike the tuning fork and we place it external auditory meatus one by one on both ears. And in this case, bone conduction is better than the air conduction. Normally when if there is no problem or obstruction during the pathway of the sound waves, the sound wave will travel through the air. But in this case, the sound wave will prefer, or it will travel better through the bone, so that's why bone conduction will be better than the air conduction. How do we treat this case? Treatment is according to the main problem or etiology. If it is a wax or infection, it can be removed, of course. In case of infection, we can give antibiotics or antifungal drugs, or if there is a perforation, the surgical repair can be done. Okay, next is the perceptive deafness or the sensory neural deafness. In this case, the main damage is either in the cochlea or in the hair cell or vestibulocochlear nerve, cochlear part especially in this case, or maybe the central processing centers of the brain throughout the pathway of the auditory cortex. Anywhere there can be a problem. So, what can be the cause? The cause can be, of course, the loud noises, for example, a bomb blast or the distant loud voices, or it may be the trauma, direct trauma to the inner ear, and the infections, for example, the middle ear infection or this infection, middle ear infection travels to the inner ear, or infection which is actually rising from the inner ear. And also there is some congenital anomalies of the cochlea and some factors related to the age. All of these can lead to the perceptive deafness. Here again we perform these two tests, which are Weber test and the Raynaud's test. In case of conductive deafness, the Weber test localized to the affected ear, while in this case the Weber test will localize to the normal ear. Why? Because the nerve is not there is a conductive, there is not a conductive deafness, but there is a problem with the sensory neural loss. So that's why the sound will localize to the normal ear. While in case of Raynaud's test, it will be reduced positive. By reduced positive mean air conduction will be better than a bone conduction, which is a normal phenomena. But in this case, both air and bone conduction are decreased equally, but difference between them is unchanged. So that's why we call it as the reduced positive. Again, how it can be treated? The treatment is to treat the cause. If it can be treated, usually the causes of the conductive deafness are reversible, while those of sensorineural deafness are usually not reversible. However, the cochlear implants can be used if the problem is with the cochlea. Okay, next is the determination of the loudness. How do our ears determine that what is the intensity or what is the loudness of the sound? There are three ways by which the ear can determine the loudness. Number one is whenever the sounds are louder. I have already told you about the by louder it means higher in intensity or higher in the amplitude. So it will basically vibrate the basilar membrane with more intensity or will more amplitude. So it will also, when the basilar membrane or hair cell will be vibrated with more intensity, it will also excite the hair cells at the more rapid rate. So in this way the brain will get the idea that this sound is loud noise. The second method by which the loudness can be determined is through the spatial summation. Again, whenever there is increased amplitude, it means it is causing more part of the basilar membrane to vibrate, or it is involving more number of cells to fire simultaneously. When more number of cells fire simultaneously, we call this process as the spatial summation. So here the transmission through many nerve fibers occur, so the brain gets the idea if the transmission from the number of fibers at one specific time, so it means there is the sound is loud or the voice is loud. The third way through which the brain can get the idea about the loudness is the stimulation of the outer hair cell. I have told you the outer hair cell, though they are less in number, but they are not usually stimulated in normal sound vibration. But if the vibrations are of high intensity or if they are of high amplitude, then it also stimulates the outer hair cell. uh, I have told you already that spatial summations of the nerve fiber is maintained throughout the auditory pathway, right from the cochlea till the auditory cortex. The spatial pattern of the nerve fibers, it is maintained throughout the pathway. So the nerve fibers which are arising from the outer hair cell are only arising from the outer hair cell. They are not arising from the inner hair cell. So these nerve fiber from the outer hair cell, when they will reach to the primary auditory cortex, brain will get the idea about the that it is residing from the outer hair cell. So it means the sound is loud or it is of high amplitude or high intensity. Okay, last part is the determination of sound direction. How does our ear know about the direction of the sound? Again, there are three methods. Number one is the time lag. Time lag is basically a difference between the time from the entry of the sound into one ear as compared to the other ear. How does it work? For example, if someone is shouting from my right side, then the voice will reach to my right ear earlier as compared to the voice in the left ear. Same is the case if someone is speaking from my left side, then the voice will reach earlier in my left side of the ear or the left cochlea as compared to the right cochlea or the right ear. So there will be a time lag. The neurons from the left ear will take nerve signals earlier as compared to the neuron from the right ear. So due to this time difference, the brain or primary auditory cortex can get the idea about the direction of the sound. Though this method works best for the sound frequencies which are lower than the 3000 Hz. The second method for the direction of the sound to determine the direction of the sound is the difference between the intensities of the sound. So it is the same thing. For example, if someone is shouting at my right side, so the intensity of the sound or amplitude of the sound will be louder in the right side of the ear as compared to the left side. Opposite will happen again. If someone is shouting from the left side, the intensity or the amplitude will be more in the left side of the ear. There will be more amplitude in the basilar membrane. There will be more intensity or the vibration felt by the hair cell, and more signals will travel from the hair cell from the ear which is in vicinity of the sound. So in this way again brain can identify the intensity. Here we have we have already discussed the superior olivary nucleus, which is present in the auditory pathway. We divide it into the two parts. One is the medial superior olivary nucleus and the other is the lateral superior olivary nucleus. Medial superior olivary nucleus, it detects the time lag, while the lateral one, it detects the difference in intensity. So this way, as I've already told you, there the nerve fibers, their special pattern is maintained throughout the auditory pathway. They stay in the same plane or in the same place throughout the auditory pathway. So the medial and superior olivary nucleus can get about the time lag and the difference in intensities. Now coming to the last pathway through which the ear can determine the sound direction is the shape of the pinna. As I've already told you that it has a very discrete or shape in the pinna. So this shape basically helps in filtration or helps in the entry of specific sound frequency. Again, it also changes the intensity. For example, as you can see, if this is the direction of the a sound, it can enter through two pathways. One is directly and other is a reflecting pathway. So due to this knowledge or due to the past experiences, the brain or the shape of the pinna through the way it changes the sound attitude or it changes the sound frequency or intensity, the brain can get the idea about the direction of the sound. The shape of the pinna changes the quality of the sound entering the ear depending upon the direction from which the sound comes. So this is the end of the lecture. Hope you guys understand this lecture. Thank you.